So I don't think I can hear you.
I'll still mute it. So sorry, I'll start again.
Oh, that's much better.
Thank you so much for joining us again for yet another Azure Thursday. And tonight's session will feature two amazing speakers yet again. And in just a minute, Roman Kumar, Corporate Vice President of Azure Data, will start this evening with a grand tour of all the limitless possibilities we have in the Azure Data platform. And there's so much there, so that's going to be an awesome session. And we're very excited he's doing this session with us. He could find the time in his schedule, in his probably very busy schedule to do this. And at 8, we have Ida Bergum, who is doing a session on analytics and insights in Microsoft Teams using Power BI. So I'm very much looking forward to that as well. That's going to be a very interesting one. So as always, we love to relay your questions to the speakers. So if you have a question, ask them in the chat, and we'll gather them and collect them and ask them at a set time, which will probably be at the end of the session due to the streaming delay we have. And we also have some bittersweet news regarding the next December edition of Azure Thursday, because December 3rd, we will not be doing a regular Azure Thursday. But instead, we have something even better, probably, that's more amazing. We have some even more amazing Azure content to share with you, because we'll be co-organizing the Benelux edition of the Virtual Azure Community Day. So definitely stay tuned on more info on that. And also I have the link to which of course I have to look here. It's the AzureDay.Community link. So if you go there and keep posted, then you can add it to your calendar. And if Rowan is ready for us, then.
Yes, I am.
Very cool.
Hey, let me just go ahead and get my slides up here.
We're so very honored to have you with us here tonight.
Really nice to have you, yeah.
Oh, thank you. Can you let me know once you're able to see my slides?
We certainly can see your slides, yes.
Yeah. Perfect. So, first of all, again, thank you, and hello, everyone. As I just got introduced, Rohan Kumar. I work for the Microsoft Azure Data team. I'm really excited to be here. One of the things that I try to do is community events like these, which are sort of so set up from just from the ground up, and in many ways, all of you are the ways in which we realize our vision, and when we invest in sort of building out these data products. But the first, I want to start by saying a huge thank you to this community. You're coming together. I mean, it's just been such a challenging time over the last multiple months because of COVID. You're navigating the change, and you're helping our customers, collective customers. So that's amazing. So just thank you. And today, I thought I'll sort of share some perspective on what is it that we're hearing from our customers. In my role, I land up spending upwards of, I'd say, 30-40% of my time talking to customers, understanding the challenges and the journey that they're going through, and how that sort of shapes our product investments. And the two areas I'm going to focus on are analytics and AI and machine learning, because it's a very broad portfolio and I have a limited amount of time, so it'd be hard to cover everything. But since it's becoming very clear, one of the things that comes up in my customer conversations is that predictive analytics using AI machine learning is such a critical element of every enterprise customer's digital transformation. Digital transformation, of course, is a pretty big buzzword. But if I had to sort of boil down to what is it that when we engage with the customers, what are the core scenarios that they're looking at from their business standpoint? First, believe it or not, is really every large enterprise, medium enterprise that I speak to, they always ask me, like, how did Microsoft transform itself? And how did you get to become, and I shared the journey that we've had about, going, building out our own modern data estate, right, to sort of become data driven at every level of employees in the company, and the intention there really was to make sure that at all levels of the organization, our employees feel, that they have all the data they need to make their decisions that impact their work. So empowering people, and this is what we hear from our customers as well, like they want to provide their employees with the best tools that helps them become a data-driven organization, right? So that's a key part. The other one, almost any customer you speak to in any industry now, especially even with COVID, it's become even more important, is to build out those connected experience. Everybody has some ambition towards creating an e-commerce site, a mobile experience, just given the proliferation of customer connections that are happening through those immersive mobile experience, and then using the feedback based on the actions that the customers take as a key input. So it's not just surveys that you do. You can literally track what is it that the customers are doing with your mobile app experience or your e-commerce site, to start looking at that as the clear feedback to transform your products, both from a capability standpoint or even looking at newer business models. I mean, there's a pretty interesting discussion that we have internally with Microsoft, within Microsoft, and with a lot of our outside customers is, as there's a lot of momentum towards I pay when I see value, how do multiple businesses evolve in those business models? So transforming products, transforming business models is an important thing. And then the ever popular one around optimizing operations, right? Like, especially if you look at any IT organization, especially given COVID, they are looking at ways in which they can look across their value chains and see how they can optimize for costs, right? And one thing that I always share, I get asked this question all the time, is, hey, has something fundamentally changed in terms of the customer investments? And what I will tell you is, I've had discussions with multiple customers who wish, I mean, these are senior executives in these companies, who wish that they'd actually expedited their transformation journey to become a lot more data driven, right? Because at this point, one of the things they're struggling with is, okay, if we have to sort of navigate the next few quarters of uncertainty because of COVID, what are the best decisions we could make? And having that modern data platform, modern analytics and platform that has AI and ML deeply integrated lands up being very, very critical for that. So if anything, this pandemic is really put into focus for them that they have to do it to survive. Now, of course, the question essentially is, as we navigate the next few quarters, can we prioritize some of the investments that help us save costs by optimizing operations? So I just wanted to share that perspective with all of you to, before getting into the details of our product strategy and as to why, like, what shapes are all up product investments. What is it that we are hearing from our customers? Because this is really, really critical. And as we look at, if we go through the semester planning, where every 6 months we sort of, look at planning and execution. And a lot of the work that we do across all the data platform services is to ensure that we are able to support our customers as they're going through this journey. Right? So that's really key. Now, with that as the background, if I sort of jump into the core pillars, first of all, one thing that I feel really, really, proud about, frankly, and I say this with a lot of humility, is if you look at the breadth of our portfolio, right? I mean, we, about 10 years ago, I'd say, or maybe 11 years ago, the only product we had was SQL Server. I mean, of course, it's a fantastic database, and it's pretty much every customer in the world that we know of uses it in one way or the other. But when I look at where how far we've sort of come in just in the last 10 years, where in Azure, just the breadth of the services that we support, of course, SQL Server continues to be a pretty strategic investment for us, but all the work that we've done in Azure to bring managed SQL support, right? With Azure SQL Database, managed instance, the work we've done around hyperscale, serverless technologies, and then we push the boundaries of operational databases to include open source, right? Where one of the things we started seeing is, for Azure, obviously we had a huge community of .NET developers who use SQL Server. It's about 7 million strong worldwide and growing pretty healthily. But we saw an opportunity to serve customers who came from the OSS background. So that's one of the reasons why we've invested pretty significantly in, Postgres, MySQL, and MariaDB on the same foundation for PaaS services that we, built from, converting SQL Server into a managed service in Azure. Then when you sort of move from there and look at, NoSQL becoming, a pretty, fast-growing database technology, if you will, for a lot of the modern cloud-native applications. really, when you look at developers who are looking at, a data first, code first, and, where they don't want to be constrained by having like strict definitions of schemas because of the evolution that they see in the data streams that they're able to handle. And so Cosmos DB was actually created, believe it or not, to support our internal services like Xbox Live. Microsoft Teams, for example, is completely built on Cosmos DB. Skype, our entire Azure portal experience, it's a single Cosmos DB database that's spread across 28 regions in the world. And we had very strict expectations around latency and throughput, right? In fact, Cosmos DB is the only operational database of any kind worldwide that doesn't just guarantee you financially backed SLAs on availability, but also on throughput and latency, which is very unique. And that really went into the design of how we partition the data across several nodes to support the true scaled out nature and what we did around geo-replication and such. We support a caching service with Redis, which is one of the most popular APIs to cache any sort of data in front of data stores, other data stores like operational databases, etc. Right? On the analytics side, of course, that's been a huge amount of learning, and I'll go a little deeper into the vision that we have around Synapse. Many of you may be aware we launched that a year ago, and it's just been phenomenal to see the growth. I've never seen any of our data services grow in that manner in terms of both customer interest and the consumption that we're seeing, as we've seen with Synapse. We significantly continue to invest in Power BI. It's a flagship service for us, when it comes to visualization tooling. And there is so much of value that we've added just to, do more than, just static reports, if you will. There's a lot of work we've done around supporting, predictive analytics inside of Power BI as well. Now, when I sort of come to hybrid, right, this is an area which, hopefully many of you are aware. When we got onto the cloud journey, it was very clear to us that, moving to the public cloud, while that may be a destination for most of the customers, the journey is not going to happen overnight, right? So it's actually interesting to see, we started off with Azure Stack, and now what we launched with Azure Arc, again, a little over a year ago, has sort of seen significant adoption as well, where, the goal that we had was both the application model and the business model that you get with cloud native services in Azure. How could we bring that to the environment of your choice? It could be a private data center, it could be some other cloud, a hyperscale cloud as well, as long as you have container as an endpoint on which we sort of build out our managed service portfolio. So all the tools, for example, that our engineering team uses to run these data services at such a large scale. For example, SQLDB today has anywhere upwards of 6.5 to 7 million active databases that get managed by a very, very small team of engineers. So we had to build in a lot of tooling, and we package all of that as a part of Arc. So hybrid's key. And then, finally, it's interesting. A lot of the modern application patterns that we see span the intelligent cloud and the intelligent edge, right? I think, remember Satya a few years ago launched this whole notion of how the whole application paradigm is changing very significantly, where the edge devices, frankly, from a data platform standpoint, are going to contain upwards of 65-70% of all the data that's produced in the world. So for that, we basically, invested in getting the core SQL Server relational engine to work on ARM devices as well, like the Raspberry Pi. So we reduce the footprint while maintaining complete compatibility of the developer programming surface area. And we're seeing a lot of traction there. And we have examples of customers who are basically training their machine learning models in the cloud and deploying them onto Azure SQL Edge devices to basically use the SQL predict function that we have to do intelligent scoring and to make decisions on the edge devices, because the latency of the decision making needs to be really small. So that's another area where we invest pretty heavily to sort of cover up the spectrum. And then finally, an area where you'll see us talk a lot more, shortly here in the next maybe month or so. I can't divulge any further details there, but we see governance of data as a very, very huge opportunity to serve our customers. Obviously in Europe, you are very familiar with GDPR, and where in many ways that actually started the trend. We have an equivalent regulation that's building up in the US called CCPA, and almost every region in the world has very strict requirements around privacy of data, policies that you want to sort of apply on data, and how and governance and such. So that's an area that's very critical to our strategy as well, and you'll hear more about that. With that as the background, let me sort of, jump into analytics. Like I said, obviously I'm sort of, as a part of this presentation, I'm not going to cover all what we've done around operational databases. I mean, there's a lot that's gone in, but just given, the strategic direction that we're seeing with the core enterprise data warehouse, I thought it might be valuable for this community to hear our vision. Synapse, you may be aware we announced this, as for us, this is a flagship service for analytics inside Azure Data. And the key learning that went into building Synapse, before I get into the details of, the pillars that are called out on the slide, is what we observed, about 3.5 years ago. We basically stepped back and said, what are the friction points? It's clear from the business users that they want time to insight, right? Like where once they decide that they need to make a decision, they need access to the data to give them that insights. And that needs to happen pretty quickly. It can't be like, several weeks or months. But that was the reality. If you look at, while there is a lot of excitement around predictive analytics, where, with machine learning AI within your data warehouse, the reality is 80% of the time and cost is spent in building up a reliable pipeline. That data integration piece, if you will, having connectivity to on-prem systems, legacy systems, SaaS applications. In many cases, you may want to get clickstream data out of your e-commerce website. If you have some sort of an IoT application set up, maybe there are devices that are sending telemetry data for you. And so just the whole setup was actually super complex, right? So with Synapse, one of the big things, pillars, that unified experience one that you see on the slide was very key, where we said, look, we need a single analytics service, not like multiple services that our customers need to stitch together, because that's what's causing the friction. That's really what's causing the time to be, several months. And if we can sort of create a service that essentially brings together the data integration capabilities, data warehousing capabilities, big data analytics into a single service as measured by, let's say, setting security, monitoring, governance, dependency tracking, availability, etc., where as a customer, as a data engineer, you have a very simple no-code experience, then that could be game-changing. So that was the vision, behind Synapse, and obviously from a scale standpoint, we basically had, like petabytes, tens of petabytes as like the minimum data point. Now, just to give you some perspective, Microsoft's own analytics platform, that's one of the things that my team supports, is upwards of 10 exabytes of data that's essentially running on Synapse today. Right, and so of course we have a team that sort of supports it, builds it to enable that scale. But fundamentally, we basically wanted to design Synapse to essentially have limitless scale. Right, I mean, there's upwards of certain, when you get into several tens of petabytes, there's certain other considerations, but we didn't want the service to have any limits when it comes to that scaling out and supporting very large volumes of data. The powerful insights, and you'll see as I get into the next slide to talk a lot about it, we've deeply integrated Synapse with Power BI and Azure Machine Learning, just to create a very seamless collaboration experience between data engineers, business analysts, and data engineers with data scientists who want to use process data to train, experiment on the data sets. I spoke about the unified experience. And then finally, of course, security is so paramount because some of the most high-value data is covered, coming as a part of the analytics platforms, and you'll see this where this was a key requirement that our customers wanted. Now, this slide, gets into a little bit more detail in terms of the layering of the stack. Azure Data Lake Storage, which it's an object store that supports an HDFS API. That's really designed for very, very large volumes of data to be managed at scale in a very cost-effective manner. The two runtimes we've bet on are SQL, T-SQL, and Spark, because T-SQL, of course, for the data engineering community is very, very popular. And Spark, as we see among the data science community, is sort of taken off in a pretty major way. We support batch workloads today, but we're working essentially on adding streaming. Sorry, it's sort of a little ahead. We're working on adding streaming workloads. So you can imagine, some of you may be familiar with Azure Data Explorer. It's a database that we have to support log analytics, streaming, event hubs. That also supports the Kafka API, Azure Stream Analytics. Just like we got data integration, data warehousing, and big data analytics, we're going to get the streaming workloads, the real-time workloads as a core part of Synapse as well. So within the unified experience. Now, it's interesting if you look at what we've done with Power BI, where just within Synapse Studio, you can create Power BI reports, you can create enterprise-grade semantic models without ever having to leave that unified experience. And then the integration we've done with Azure Machine Learning enables data scientists to automatically work on the data sets that have been processed by Synapse, run their experiments either through Jupyter Notebooks, you can write Python code, or you can in AML, which is sort of like the one-stop shop for analytics, you can use the automated ML workflow to train your models. And once your models get trained and you pick the one that works best for your scenario, you just register it. Then automatically within SQL and Spark queries, you can use those models for scoring purposes. So it's a very, like I said, when a lot of customers ask me, how do you compare analytics with others in the market? And I always tell them there is no other service that does everything what Synapse does. You can take pieces of it, right? You have some provisioned warehouses, you have serverless queries, that's some support. There are some services that do data integration, but Synapse essentially brings together the end-to-end pipeline in a pretty seamless manner. So that actually I'm super excited about. Synapse Link, this is the next set of innovation that we announced onto Synapse earlier this year at Build. And the key problem there we tried to solve was the deep integration between our operational databases. Starting with Cosmos DB, we are bringing this to SQL DB, SQL Server, Postgres, etc. Where the idea is we wanted to reduce the friction of basically supporting analytics, real-time analytics on your operational transactions as they commit. So our goal really is within 30 seconds of the transaction committing, that data should be available within Synapse to run your machine learning experiments, etc. Now that's really important, for if you look at scenarios like, you want to learn in real time based on your customer interactions, let's say on your e-commerce website or the application that you've provided on the mobile phone, where you presented a certain set of offers to them, and let's say they declined it. There were some search results that they came up and that didn't convert into a sale. You want to learn from each action like that is a very key data point. And not weeks later or months later, but in real time, because that's really what's going to change the game. That closed loop between your line of business application that's committing the operational transactions, that data landing in Synapse, you're training the models and putting the newly trained model, which took that insight into your system, back into your e-commerce system, that improves the experience for the customer. So that's truly where Synapse Link comes together. Again, it's the cloud native HTAP. There's no other cloud that has anything close to it today. And we're seeing a significant amount of, again, uptake from customers who've used our operational databases like Cosmos DB as an example, because of the simplicity that Synapse Link has created for them. Let me sort of speak about a customer, NeoGrid. Now this is one of the customers that we've had who basically use Synapse to completely transform themselves. Right? It's an information service provider for top retailers such as Walgreens, Walmart, and manufacturers like 3M, Adidas. And unlike a traditional data warehouse that handles data within one corporation, NeoGrid actually collects data from several retailers and in turn serves more than 580 manufacturers. Right? So they're relying on like an old legacy, costly on-prem data warehousing solution, and they were running into lots of challenges like limited disk space. There was end of support requirements. They didn't really have a good disaster recovery solution, which was very, very painful. And they also, more and more, their customers started demanding more real-time, analytics, and the lag. The system was just not able to handle that, and so they made a huge bet on Synapse, and it's like significantly changed the game for them. Their entire analytics process, they're able to generate powerful insights in near real time for their customers, and at the scale, it just basically works for them. And all their on-prem, warehousing solutions that contain retail, manufacturing, logistics data is all ingested into ADLS and then processed through Synapse, to produce insights. It's a pretty amazing story of how this thing has succeeded. Now let me sort of move and go into a demo to actually show how Synapse and everything comes together. Are you able to hear it? Just making sure that.
operations. To improve this and increase business efficiency, Lisa needs to incorporate real-time customer purchasing data into her existing Synapse Enterprise Data Warehouse. She'll use this data to develop a predictive model and then socialize these predictions with her peers using existing tools and, of course, existing skills. Azure Synapse Analytics is the evolution of the data warehouse. It is a fully integrated analytics platform that provides data integration and analytics capabilities for SQL and machine learning through an intuitive web-based development experience. The platform provides both code-first and code-free interfaces that enable developers of all roles to be productive and unlock new insights from any data and at any scale. Lisa determines that by supplementing her existing data with real-time point-of-sale data and other operational data, she can more accurately predict product inventory requirements. Since Contoso retail point-of-sale systems run on Cosmos DB, Lisa can enable a real-time feed of this data into Synapse via a single click in Azure. This data is now available for analytics in Synapse without building any data integration pipelines. Lisa isn't a data scientist and doesn't have the skills to determine the optimal machine learning model for her scenario. With Synapse, Lisa can incorporate this real-time data with existing analytics data, and using the native link to Azure Machine Learning, she can apply AutoML to identify and train the right algorithm for this scenario. The final and most important task is to empower her team with these improved insights. Using Synapse in-engine SQL scoring, Lisa can operationalize her new predictive model directly within the Enterprise Data Warehouse. This enables the entire organization to easily visualize the new inventory forecast in their existing BI tools. And because a lot of this data is sensitive, the native row-level security and data masking is honored when the predictive model runs, so that no one has access to data they shouldn't. Using native integration with Power BI, she can author and edit reports within Synapse and share the insights with her team. With Azure Synapse, Lisa was able to quickly deploy an improved inventory forecast solution using real-time data. The SQL interface provided predictive insights to all existing business intelligence tools. No additional training or applications were required, and all existing data security was maintained in the solution.
Hopefully that gave you a good sense of the various capabilities of Synapse and how they come together. Now let's, if you really look at what's the ultimate goal of having all this data, processing it, it's really to get important insights to help drive your business forward. And part of this is also being able to predict based on all the historical data and trends that we're seeing, what decisions to make for the future. Depending on the vertical that you are in, it could be equipment failure predictions, anticipating customer needs, or maybe forecasting some catastrophic events. And over the past few years, we've seen an incredible transformation of industries as they're harnessing the power of AI to transform their business. And AI ML is pretty much baked into all data products that we have. It's customizable, it's repeatable, and it really changes the way a lot of the decisions get made based on the insights. Now, one of the things, what we've sort of seen, from our customers is our Azure AI customers are using machine learning to build predictive models, of course, and optimizing their business processes as an example, and storing these models inside the data services. They're also using advanced vision, speech, language, and decision-making capabilities to build out the AI-powered apps and agents to deliver personalized experiences. So for a developer, it's actually as simple as calling just an API, and all the complexity of training those models, making sure that they have the best predictions, are all sort of hidden from the developer. And we have customers who are applying a lot of AI services at scale, like knowledge mining. So this is an area where they're able to uncover a lot of latent insights from vast repositories of data, where those those relationships, the causal relationships that may lead to something which are very, very hard, to figure out without having this depth of the AI knowledge. Now, while all this is great, the big trend that we see when we talk to our customers essentially is this whole notion of designing trustworthy AI. When more and more of decisions are going to be, based on this predictive analytics, a major challenge is how do you build that in a way that the inner workings are very well understood? Why did the model make this decision? How do you ensure that any of the models that were trained on data sets, are they fair or biased, right? Like, how do I basically train AI models on sensitive private data without leaking it? A great example here is mortgage lending. Consumers and lenders alike want to ensure that the models in that vertical being used in their predictions are both avoiding any unintended biases and protecting privacy of customer data. And of course, how do you sort of look at regulations and stay compliant with that? So we've invested very heavily in our Azure AI services towards responsible AI. And let me actually sort of bring in Sarah, who's going to demo how all of these things work and come together.
Hello, everyone. Today, I'm going to be walking through a demo of some of our responsible AI tools on Azure. As we progress through the ML lifecycle, I'm going to be demonstrating 3 key capabilities: protecting sensitive information with differential privacy, assessing and improving model fairness with Fair Learn, and analyzing and explaining model behavior with Interpret ML. In this demo, I'm going to be building a model for loan applications to decide which to accept and which to reject. Let's dive in. Here I'm using Azure Databricks, but you could also use a Jupyter Notebook or your favorite Python environment. Like any good model building scenario, the first thing I want to do is look at my data. Here I'm looking at aggregate information as well as individual features to help give me a feel for the data set and uncover any potential issues up front. It looks like this data set contains a lot of great data to help me build my model. It also contains highly sensitive information that must be kept private. Obviously, I can limit direct access to the data with the data store. However, what many people don't realize is that aggregate values can still be used to reveal private information about individuals. Let's go to an example to see what I mean. So here I'm going to demonstrate how we can use aggregate information to reconstruct the data set. So in this case, I'm going to assume that I know aggregates about individuals' income, as well as a little bit of additional information about 2 individuals in the data set. And with that, I can take an off-the-shelf SAT solver and use that to reconstruct a data set that's consistent with the information that we know. So if we run our SAT solver here, it's working to reconstruct that data set, and we see that it can actually find a result. And now we're going to compare that to the real data set and see how well our attacker did. So in this case, it looks like the attacker did pretty well. We're able to correctly reconstruct the incomes of individuals within $5,000 for more than 20% of the data set, which could be a significant privacy violation. So what do we do about attacks like these? How do we use data but still protect privacy? And this is where differential privacy can help. So differential privacy hides the contribution of individuals in the output computation by adding a small amount of statistical noise to the query. The noise is significant enough to protect the privacy of individuals, but often small enough to still allow us to use the data. Differential privacy also calculates the amount of information that is revealed in the query and subtracts that from an overall privacy loss budget. Let's look at how this works. So here I'm going to use our open source differential privacy platform, and now I'm going to add that statistical noise to the income information. And then I can retry my attack with my SAT solver, And what you'll see here is that we get a very different result. We aren't able to reconstruct a data set that's consistent with the differentially private incomes. And so we don't have any guesses at any private information. However, it's not enough to just protect privacy. We still want to be able to use the data. So let's look at how we're doing here. In this case, you can see that we're looking pretty good. We're pretty close to the original information. You can definitely see some noise added, particularly because this is a small data set. However, now I can take this and go and use it in my problem, knowing that I don't have to be concerned about privacy attacks. So one of the ways that we can use differential privacy in machine learning is to generate synthetic data sets. So here I'm going to use my open source toolkit, and I'm going to create a data set that matches the patterns and trends of my original data set, but doesn't reveal any private information. And that way I can take that and give it to my data scientist without having to worry about privacy. So I'm going to generate my data set here. And now that I have my private data set, I can go and build my model. So here I'm going to build a scikit-learn model for my problem. And now that I've built the model, I want to actually analyze the performance and see, is it good enough for my problem? So of course, I can look at traditional metrics like accuracy. However, since this is a problem where a wrong decision could have a significant impact on an individual's life, it's important that I go a step farther and I also consider the fairness of my model. So in this case, I'm going to use FairLearn so that I can understand how well my model works for different groups of people and make sure that it's not using sensitive attributes to make decisions. So in this case, I'm going to use FairLearn, and FairLearn has an interactive dashboard to help me better understand the fairness assessment. So I'm going to click Get Started here, and my data set has two values, sex and race. So let's click into sex and understand how well my model's doing. But I also need to provide a performance metric, which metric's important for my problem. So in this case, it's accuracy. So I'm going to click through. And the first thing I have is a graph here that helps me understand the difference in model performance across these two groups. So I can see that my model's more accurate for women than men, and it's about 85% accurate overall. However, I'm really interested in the outcome of this model. What's the difference in who I'm offering loans to? So in this case, I can see that I'm offering loans to 19% of people overall. However, I have a significant difference in the number of loans I'm offering to women and men. I'm offering loans to about 7% of women that apply and about 25% of men that apply. Now, I don't necessarily know if this is a problem. It could be that these two groups have very different distributions. However, I do know that it's a sign that I want to dive in and investigate further. So for that, I can use Interpret ML and its black box explanations. So I'm going to generate explanations for my model here, and then I'm going to use its interactive dashboard to explore those and understand how it's making its decisions. So in this case, I'm going to set up two different cohorts. So let's set up one for women so we can understand what's going on there. So I'm going to add a filter for sex, and women are 0 in this data set, so we can add this filter, and I'm going to save. Then I'm going to add a second cohort here for men, and I'm going to select this. And in this case, I'm setting up for men and women since I want to look at this fairness problem, but you could use lots of different cohorts like train and test to compare as well. So in this case, what we can see is the model performance, just like we saw in FairLearn, but in a lot more detail. However, what I want to do here is jump over to the explanations to understand the feature importance and how the model's making decisions. And what I can see right away is that the model is using sex directly as a feature to make predictions for women, but not necessarily for men. And if I click on this, I can actually dive in and see that for women, for every single woman in the data set, the value of sex being 0 is directly contributing to the prediction that they are rejected, which is pretty concerning. And so what I want to do at this point is move on and explore mitigation techniques. So for that, I can go back to FairLearn and use some of the built-in mitigation algorithms that allow me to reduce disparity either during training or after. So in this case, I'm going to use the grid search approach where I'm going to retrain many different models by reweighting the data to try to reduce the disparity. So I've run my model training here, and now I can go back to the FairLearn dashboard to look at the best models. So in this case now, I have a range of models that are along the curve of difference in predictions and accuracy. So here's my original model up here, and now I'm actually going to click through and look at this model, which is a little less accurate, about 82% accurate. But if I jump down to the disparity in predictions, I can see that I have a much different outcome. Now I'm offering loans to 15% of men and 14% of women that apply. So this might be a much more promising model for my problem. And so what I'm going to do now is actually save all of my work so that I can share it with collaborators or show it to other stakeholders as we make a decision about whether or not we want to move forward with this model. So I'm going to register all of my models here. I can upload my dashboards and my explanations, everything to Azure Machine Learning. Then if I move over to my Azure Machine Learning Studio here, then I can click on a particular run. And so here's my different runs, and I can click into one. And now I can actually have my dashboard stored directly with my model, as well as the fairness. And so now I can show this to other stakeholders or compare to previous models as I decide whether or not I want to take this into production.
Hopefully that sort of gave you a good sense of the whole end-to-end experience, let's say for a data scientist as they're sort of working on looking at the results of the predictions from the model, and then that transparency which helps them detect if there's any bias, and then take steps to mitigate that bias to ensure that the model is fair, and the critical decisions that are being made by the model. Because I mean these. Look, I think that we're moving towards a world where a lot of these predictive analytic decisions are going to define whether somebody gets a house loan, what grades they get, which schools they get admitted into. I mean, we've seen that happen recently in Europe as well. And so these are very, very impactful decisions. And that's the reason why we're investing so heavily to make sure that responsible AI is a very critical anchor point of how we think about our AI services. The final chapter I have around governance, I sort of spoke about the importance of governance of data. The big thing I'd like to call out here, and you'll hear a lot more, like I said, in the coming months, is our target really is the chief data officer, because who's responsible, or the chief privacy officer, depending on the company. The titles could be different, but they're responsible to make sure that all the regulations are complied with the data that the company has. And they need to answer questions around discovery, like what data do I have, where did it originate, can I trust it, like who changed it, all the lineage tracking, classification, etc. And then the governance piece, what's my exposure to risk, was there any compliance issue related to GDPR that was violated, how do I set governance policies of who can access what types of data, especially when it has PII information, can I do things to, like mask certain data sets. So there's a huge, set of complex questions that need to be supported. And that's really, the platform that we're building. What we have today is a piece of the puzzle. It's very important, which essentially is the Azure Data Share Service that works with all our data services like storage, Synapse, etc., to ensure that you can share data between an organization within different divisions or across organizations with a lot of security. It essentially, there's the ease of use. There's flexibility where you can sort of say things like don't copy the data, and restrict the number of queries that you can run against it and such, just to ensure that you're not leaking too much, and then expand the analytical data sets as well. Now let's sort of go to a demo to actually show how Azure Data Share works.
Contoso operates more than 1,000 retail stores worldwide and works with more than 10,000 suppliers. Their business operations depend on timely sharing of sales, inventory, and forecast data with their supply chain. As their business grows, it becomes increasingly challenging to manage data sharing at scale with their large number of suppliers. Lisa's team manages sales and inventory data preparation and shares these insights with their top suppliers. John is a data engineer at Fabricam, a supplier to Contoso. John receives data from Lisa on a regular basis and combines this data with other data for forecast and planning. With Azure Data Share, Contoso can easily and securely share data at scale with their supply chain without the need to set up and maintain additional infrastructure. Using Azure Data Share, Lisa shares data with John with just a few clicks. To create a share, Lisa first specifies the share name, the mode of sharing, either snapshot or in place, a description of the data, and a terms of use. Next, Lisa selects what data she wants to share. She has the flexibility to select data from a variety of data sources, including sales data from Azure Data Lake Storage and inventory data from Azure SQL Database. Lisa specifies John from Fabricam as the recipient. With snapshot sharing, Lisa can configure a schedule to provide automated updates to ensure Fabricam gets up-to-date data on a regular basis. After the share is created, John receives an email notifying him that Lisa has shared Contoso data with him. Following the link in the email, John can view the details of the invitation, agree to the terms of use, and accept the share. John has the flexibility to choose where and how he wants to consume the data. He decides to receive the data as files and folders in Fabricam's Azure Data Lake Storage and enables scheduled update. With this turned on, Azure Data Share automates ongoing snapshots of the data from Contoso to Fabricam. By connecting Azure Data Lake Storage to Azure Synapse Analytics, John and other data engineers at Fabricam can explore the data using a familiar analytics engine such as SQL On Demand or Spark. They can combine their in-house data, Contoso data, and data they receive from other retail customers to perform forecasting and planning analyses, turning data into insights within minutes. Lisa can centrally manage Contoso's data sharing from a single dashboard, keeping track of what data is shared with whom and when. She can also receive data from suppliers seamlessly. There is no longer any need to set up and maintain additional infrastructure. With Azure Data Share, Contoso delivers data to their suppliers in a timely manner with minimal overhead. This creates more agility for their supply chain operations and enables faster time to insights. It allows Contoso to quickly adjust to changes in customer demand, resulting in optimal stock level and reduced operational cost.
Hopefully, that was sort of the final demo, and we sort of spoke about an element of what we are trying to do with our governance platform, being sharing of data. And I just wanted to close back the way I started with talking about the 4 pillars of the digital transformation, which effectively guide a lot of the investments, like I said. And it is really a fantastic opportunity when I think about the role all of you and a modern data estate is going to play. Our customers need the help to transform themselves digitally, to sort of really take advantage of a lot of the power that the cloud offers, the hybrid technologies offers, and analytics and governance of data, frankly, is going to be at the center of a lot of these customer transformations. And we'd love to keep hearing the feedback from the community on how we could do better. And again, thanks for everything that you do and all the feedback that you give. So with that, maybe let me hand it back and see if there are any questions.
Thank you, Rowan, for sharing this. Such amazing developments around the real-time processing with Synapse links and all the other things you shared. We'll definitely stay in tune for those announcements regarding the governance in the next month. So we're very much looking forward to that. And we certainly have some questions as well, and we probably can't ask them all. But we got one question from the speakers from last month's edition, and it was concerning Azure Synapse and Databricks, because Microsoft announced Azure Synapse last year.
Right.
And we also have Databricks. So are there any plans for the roadmap? Because, well, Microsoft promotes both, but they have similar options. They seem to solve similar problems. Are we going to still have both? I think that's the question.
Yeah, so a couple of things. What I'd say is, if I sort of take a look at, there are multiple personas we are trying to solve for, right? Like with Synapse, the vision that we had was, across the board, like how do we simplify everything that happens in the analytics pipeline with a single product, right? And of course, this includes, we have data engineers who use SQL a lot for their transformations. They're basically, scientists who want to sort of use Apache Spark, for some of their data science workloads and the whole integration that we've done. Now, there are customers, who basically want everything Spark, right? They just want a premium Spark experience. And we have a fantastic relationship. It's a first-party service with Azure Databricks. So you're right. In a lot of these cases, what you'll notice is that there is some amount of overlap that may happen, but it's essentially to serve the needs of the customers that they have. In this is the case. You almost pick HD Insight as an example, which is another service which is targeted towards more lift and shift of your existing Hadoop environment. Does it have Spark? Does it have Hive, etc. that you can do your warehousing on? Yes, but it is very tailored towards a specific scenario. So what I would suggest is the way we sort of think about these product innovations is we always go from customers, what are they familiar with? As we start thinking about Babylon, that will be deeply integrated with Synapse. And it's a thing that we're moving forward towards. And then, as we move, we'll always listen to customers and see if there are better integration options. For example, even with Synapse, if you want to use a different data integration story, you can. If you want to use Databricks for Spark by using SQL inside Synapse, you can do that, right? So there is the extensibility is always there, but we just wanted to provide an option in Synapse for our customers so that that true integrated experience comes to life.
Perfect. So we have absolute freedom in which tool we choose.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Perfect. Thank you. And I think we have time for one question. And I think that's a small one because we have Azure Synapse Workspace, which has been in preview for a couple of months now, I think. Is there anything to tell us on the roadmap, and that will be available?
How about, I'm not, it is, of course, as you know, specific dates are always a little confidential, but I really like this community. Yeah. So how about just wait a month?
Okay. Thank you so much. That's a very good answer. Well, I want to thank you again for sharing this content and for this amazing session. And I think that's all the time we have, because in a couple of minutes we have Ida Bergum that's going to show us around and how to use this amazing data platform to do analytics and insights around Microsoft Teams using Power BI. So that will be a very good one as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm sure Ida's session is going to be great. And again, I do want to thank the community. I hope, I did want to share a little bit of the customer perspective so that all of you understand what guides, our strategy and product innovation. But, there's one thing that I leave you with is, there's few times in one's life where this opportunity comes up. And I actually think as data professionals, all of you are, fairly fortunate, I must say, to be, having those skills at this point in time in the world, because it is going to be super relevant in every vertical and every customer. So again, thanks for the great partnership, and you can count on us to sort of listen to your feedback and make changes that help you solve your customers' problems. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And now we have, I think 2 minutes to grab a fresh cup of coffee.
Yeah.
We'll be back in just a couple of minutes with a session from Ida. And first we have a word from our sponsors, I believe.
And we're back again. So that was a really nice session, and we will move on to our next guest. Our next speaker is Ida Bergum. Is she already there? I don't see her in the stream yet. Yeah, there she comes. There she comes. Hello, good evening.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Hi.
Great to see you.
How are you?
I'm good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sitting at home as well, as probably everyone are doing these days.
Like everyone, still isolated in their in their houses. Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, fortunately we have our technique nowadays, and we can do sessions like this, so that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. What would the life be without YouTube and Teams, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, very nice to have you. And I think perfect session you will give with nowadays. I think Teams is one of the most used one of the most used tool at the moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so a very hot topic. Yeah, so very curious about your session. And
Great
I think
to
a
hear,
great combination of two powerful tools.
It absolutely is. Yeah, and it was really interesting to see Rohan's view and the whole bringing data to everyone vision of Microsoft. I like that vision. It's really powerful, and I see which direction they're moving in, and I like it.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, if you're ready, I think we can go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, let me just share my desktop here, and
yeah, there it is.
Yeah, you can see it now.
Yeah.
All right, okay. Yeah. So, yeah, thank you so much for inviting me to speak today. It was really cool to hear Rohan. And yeah, it's I'm of course very interested in all of the data topics there are out there, since that's also what I do on a daily basis. And today I will be talking about Power BI and Teams, a relationship that I feel is really worth exploring. And yeah, data is everywhere, as Rohan just pointed clearly out. Everyone is asking how can we use our data in a better way to make better decisions. And I totally agree. That's also what I see on a daily basis, that companies are really struggling on getting kind of past that, that silo world. So what I will be presenting today, bringing data into Teams, giving the people the insights where they're spending the most of their time these days. That's something I felt really important and even more important in these days, right? So just to give you a little brief explanation of who I am for those who don't know me, and there's probably many of those. So I work in a company called Avanade. It's actually owned partly by Accenture and Microsoft, a joint venture. And I work with many of our Nordic enterprise clients on these topics. So how can we use data, make better decisions, and take action on those decisions? That's basically what I do. And I'm also a data platform MVP. Been that for 2 years now, and I do love Power BI. That's kind of I have a Power BI lover in my slide here, and yeah, that's what I would call myself. I'm really enthusiastic about Power BI, and that's what's bringing me here today as well. So let's just jump into what I will be talking about today. So I have 2 different topics actually as part of my presentation today. First one will be focusing on bringing Power BI and Teams together. And this is a quite new experience. Might be that some of you don't even know it exists. If you haven't read all of the release notes that keeps popping up these days. So that will be the first part. And then the second part is actually how can we use Teams analytics, for instance, using Power BI. So there are some pretty nice accelerators if you're into like measuring all of the call quality and call data that you have in regards to Teams. I'll be showing you some good ways to do that as well. So that's the agenda. And I'm just going to jump right into the whole empower every team story. And back to Rohan's points, everyone these days are talking about becoming more data driven. And yeah, the struggles, back to what Rohan said, we need to make some decisions and we need to make them fast, right? And data is really, really key in all of the decisions that we make. And of course, Teams, as a key point these days, I actually spend maybe 10 hours a day in Teams, right? In calls and yeah, having different meetings with my colleagues. So the way we work these days have changed dramatically, right? Especially these few past months. And then new work patterns are definitely emerging from that. We're shifting to remote work. And yeah, it's a different world, basically. But Power BI is a really, really key component in all of the data solutions that I work with today. Power BI makes it easier to infuse data into these tools that we work. It doesn't only actually cover the Teams aspect. Power BI is integrated into a whole lot of experiences. So whether that's collaborating in Teams, if it's exploring data in Microsoft Excel, for instance, or leveraging the rest of the Power Platform to turn insights into action. And yeah, Microsoft recently announced several new capabilities in this area. And that is, of course, to infuse data into the everyday tools, while at the same time actually enabling IT to feel confident that it's governed and secured. And then creating a central personalized home for data in Teams will ensure that insights are always just a click away from the conversations we're having with our colleagues, with our teams, with our customers. And also where all of the decisions are made. And in addition to that, bringing the data into Teams, there is also an option, of course, for Teams administrators to pin Power BI to the left-hand navigation of Teams, which we all know very well. And then you can encourage actually your entire organization to infuse the data into their daily collaborations. So this is quite powerful from my point of view. And also, of course, a big step towards creating that data-driven culture, and making people more aware of using data into the daily conversations that we're having. And of course, I have a couple of demos to you today because this is something that I don't want to talk about throughout the whole session. It's better to show you how this actually works. The first demo I'll show you today is about the home experience and the new Power BI app for Teams. You probably know the old one, which was brilliant, but this is just taking it to a whole new level of intelligence into Teams. So you can actually find and view data much, much faster. You don't have to leave Teams to get the insights you're looking for. You can get them from within Teams. And you can also collaborate with your colleagues in a much faster way to share insights. And of course, this will foster a culture of using the data to make better and more agile decisions, for sure. Then the second demo here is about the search experience to find and open Power BI content. So you can actually name Power BI just if it was a colleague or something else. You can create, or you can search and use the search experience as part of many different angles within Teams. So I'll show you how that works from both chats and meetings and other conversations. Yeah, then we have the chat experience. It's actually the same search experience, but just from the chat window. So you can then find and open Power BI content by writing at Power BI. And then there is also, of course, some really, really interesting things coming. That's the gray bubbles in my slide. And this is super, super exciting. The data set discovery. I have a preview that I've stolen from the Power BI team in terms of previewing that feature. So I won't be able to show you like the full experience of it, but at least you can get an impression of the data set discovery from within Teams. And what that functionality actually does, it helps you to both find data. So it kind of gives another layer of data findability within Teams. So you can search for data sets from the tool you're using every day. And then you can create actually reports and also Excel workbooks from within that experience. And for me, that's kind of groundbreaking, that you can actually quickly spin up a report based on a data set while you're working from Teams. So super excited to jump over to the next demo here, or the first demo actually, which is the Teams Power BI application. Okay, so let's jump into it. So within Teams, let me just hold this for a second so you can see. This is the Teams experience, the normal, I'm within Teams, and if I go a little bit further here, the ribbon is actually cut off from the picture, but if you go into Teams and you search for apps and then Power BI, you have the option to attach that application to Teams in your personal Teams experience. And as you can see, there are a couple of different options here. So you can either add Microsoft or Power BI, to a team. That's the old experience, the one that you probably know from before, where you could like have a tab within your team to display reports. And then you also have the option to add to a chat, and that's the new experience. So let's go a little bit further here and just open up the new application from within Teams. And what you can see here is actually the experience that you are used to seeing from Power BI. So you get your home experience directly embedded into Microsoft Teams. And of course, you have your favorites, your frequents, you have your tagged dashboards and reports and tiles. So actually this experience is very, very similar to what we're used to in the Power BI service. And yeah, so you can go in and click on a tile and drill down to your report and get more insights. You can go into your favorites and frequents and see what content you actually have here. And of course, all of the workspaces are there, all of the content has been shared with you is there. And then you also have the learning section. So this is pretty similar. Yeah, the Learning Center, this is where there are added in some content. This is the default Microsoft ones, so not the personalized ones. And then, of course, you can go in and see the information about the application, which version you're using, if you're using an old one, for instance. And what's interesting is that you have actually the total experience with the ribbon and everything on the left-hand side. So you can actually go in and fetch a new application. So for instance, the COVID-19 US application that is out there, open for everyone to download and use. That's something you can go in and fetch directly from Teams. You can also go into, for instance, deployment pipelines if you have a premium capacity, and you can steer your deployments from within Teams. So there is actually not that many differentiators from the Power BI normal experience. Of course, the Learning Center is still there. You can go into your workspaces here. So you see the workspace experience popping up. And then you can go into the workspaces. You can see all of the content. You can even create an application yourself from within Teams. And you can, change the settings of a workspace. You can add to a premium capacity. And of course, you can also change the permissions of a workspace from within Teams. So there aren't that many differences in this view, so to say. So yeah, let's go a little bit further into the demo here so I can show you how the actual search experience looks like. So within Teams, we do have commands, easy ways to find content from the search ribbon on the top. And if you look closely now, you can go up to the ribbon there in the search field, and then you can just write Power BI. And then you will get a set of different options. So in this case here, you can see that I get my reports, and I can search for all of the content I have within my workspace. So you can see here I have the 3 pink ones. Those are workspaces. And then I have a dashboard and an app as well on the top there. And of course, if I want to find something specific, I can just go further and write or select a report. So in this case, if I just select the Microsoft 365 Usage Analytics, I also get some additional actions there within the Teams experience. And this is quite interesting because from here, you can either, of course, choose to go and open it, and you can even subscribe to this report directly from within Teams. And that's quite interesting, actually. Interesting options. You can also copy the link to the report. But what happens if you actually click open, it will redirect you to the Power BI service. But if you go back to Teams and then we open, for instance, a workspace, it will also actually redirect us to that workspace. So it's a really, really easy way of searching and finding and opening content directly from the Teams experience. I'll jump on a little bit here. Oh. Yeah, and another thing, if we go into the Power BI service, there is a different angle to how we can access or share content. So if we go into the Power BI service, powerbi.com, there is the option up in the ribbon there. If I go into the usage analytics report, I can also click on the chat in Teams option. This is also a new thing it came back in October. So then what I can do is I get this window up, and then I can share that specific report to a team or a team member or whoever I would like to share this specific report to. And then of course I can add in a additional text to give some context to which report I'm sharing, and maybe where they should have a look if there is something interesting in terms of data in that report. So then I've shared that to my teams, and then everyone in that team will get a notification, of course, that I've shared a link to a report with them. Of course, it would be wonderful if we can kind of open up within the same experience. Maybe it will come in the future, who knows. And then when I'm in a channel, in a Teams, I can also go into just the normal conversation line there, and I can also write Power BI and do the similar search experience from there. So I could also then, for instance, just find a specific report and then share it from within that experience. So there's like many different angles to how you now can access and share data. And now this is, for instance, a colleague, Adminson. And then, of course, I can go in, and this is a little bit of a different experience, actually, because here you get both the search and the settings. So if you go into settings, it's not really anything interesting in that sense. But I can directly search and find content that I would like to share with my colleague. For instance, I would like him to go into this specific workspace and then work on some content together with me. So this is also a pretty neat way of handling conversations in the chat. And then, of course, Adminson can go and open up that specific report as long as he has access, or the workspace in this case. All right, so let's jump a little bit further in here. There is another angle as well, and that's meetings, where we do spend a lot of time these days. And in this case, I'm just, of course, calling myself. And in the meeting chat there, you can see there's already a set of reports that has been shared. And then if you type Power BI into that chat as well, you get the search experience from within the meeting. So then you can just write Power BI, and of course it's a little bit low down there. But then you get the search experience again, and you can then go directly in and share the Office 365 analytics to everyone participating in that specific meeting. So this is also something that is quite interesting in terms of using data as part of your daily meetings. And then, of course, they will be there in the history and everything. So you can go back and have a look later on. And then oh, sorry, I jumped a little bit too quickly here. The interesting part, and this is this preview feature. This is a GIF, so it's just going to keep on going and going and going. But this is something that is going to come later. I don't know when yet. I'm hoping at least before Christmas, that's for sure. But this is the dataset search experience. So from within Teams, you can see here that you have recommended datasets on the top. And these are datasets that are recommended by the organization and kind of jumped up. So you can get them in your home experience. And then if you click on a specific data set here, you can actually see there are the option to create it. It's going really, really quickly, but you can actually create the report from within Teams. And this is really, really interesting because it gets actually, this is a curated data set. So it, of course, a data model you can't do much about in this case, but you can easily reuse a data set and then spin up a new report or an app for that matter while you're in Teams. And this is a real accelerator from my point of view. So super interesting, and I'm really much looking forward to this arriving. Okay, so now that we have explored the Power BI plus Teams experience, I'm going to move into the second part of the presentation, which is actually how can we get insights from Teams. And then I have a couple of different options as well, but we're starting lightweight. First of all, the Office 365 user activity app. That will be the first one because, and this is really something I tell most of my clients. So before you kind of start working on something big and expensive, just see what's out there in terms of using content that already exists, and accelerators, as I would like to call them. And the Office 365 user activity app is an accelerator indeed, because it's actually a template app that everyone can go into Power BI and then just spin up based on your own tenant ID. Of course, you need certain rights and everything in terms of getting the correct data up there, but it's a real accelerator. And that Office 365 user activity app will give you an amount of insights into Teams, for instance, but it also gives you an overview of the rest of the Office 365 applications. The other way to get some insights into Teams, that's Workplace Analytics. And Workplace Analytics is coming, not coming to Microsoft Teams, that's maybe a little bit wrong phrase, but Microsoft Analytics will be able to provide you insights on Teams. That was actually announced on Ignite not too long ago. So that's a very interesting option. Requires, of course, some additional setup and all of that, and I will go into the architectures of that specific option later on. And then we have a fairly interesting option, which I don't think that many actually knows about, and that's the call quality dashboard. So if you're administrating Teams or have some role of, I don't know, handling Teams within your organization, then you can actually use these. These are also what I would call accelerators, because they are Power BI desktop files that you can then just connect to your own tenant, and you will get some really, really interesting insights into the quality of Teams calls within your organization. And then, of course, we do have the fourth option there, which is a custom option, which is kind of the last option, but of course the most flexible option in terms of getting the insights in the way that you need for your specific organization. Will of course require some more development, but I will also speak a little bit about how that option works. So let's have a look at the out-of-the-box option here. So this is actually what I was showing you in the previous demo as well. That was the Office 365 app from within Power BI Service that you can just easily spin up based on your own tenant ID. So let's jump over into that demo. Then I'm just going to start here. And Power BI, this is now already loaded in, of course, in my specific environment. But if you would like to go and fetch this application from, and you don't have it from previous, of course, you can just go into the home experience and then go into apps and just search for Microsoft 365 Usage Analytics. And then you'll have the option to download that app, and it will create a workspace for you that you can, you will have access to the report and of course the underlying data set. You won't be able to change that data set specifically, but you can definitely change the report. So that's a fairly low cost option. And what you can see here in the Microsoft 365 Usage Analytics is that it's a pre-made report for you. It has, of course, a couple of high-level stats. So in this executive summary here, you can see that there are some good insights into adoption, for instance, of Microsoft 365. I have some basic stats on usage, on mobility, communication, collaboration, storage, and then we go into the specific services with some high-level KPIs of usage. So you can see that we have Exchange, OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams, and Yammer and Skype for Business. So there are definitely some pre-made Teams insights for you within this application. So let me start up here again. And yeah, I'm just going to scroll over to product usage. So here you can actually see Teams usage over time. So you get this is of course a little bit old, June 2020, I had 1,612 active users and 97.2%. And then of course I can have a look at enabled and active users over time. So this can kind of give me an indication, and I'm guessing, it's only a guess, but I think that has skyrocketed after March. And then of course you can go into the different months, and then you can get some additional stats into call participation, channel messaging, chat messaging, and also participation in meetings. So you get some out-of-the-box stats that's quite interesting in terms of looking at how Teams is used and adopted across your organization. And of course, you can highlight and drill and filter and do all of the amazing things that Power BI allows you to do. So for instance, looking at January, I can compare periods, etc. And then, of course, you can go into more details, granular details in terms of, for instance, specifically user activity on Teams. So here you can filter on company, department, country, state, city, and you get all of the activities across these dimensions. So here you can also get some quite interesting insights. So we have, of course, the total of activities, we have total channel messages, and a couple of other stats here. Total meeting participants, call participants, and so on. So we do get a lot of free insights just by using this application. And of course, have a look at the map in terms of the different activities across Microsoft Teams. All right, now it's going a little bit too fast for me here. Moving on to from the out-of-the-box option, I also want to show you, or I'm actually not showing you this since I don't have the correct license, but I will at least explain you the kind of next level option. So if the out-of-the-box stats doesn't really provide you the insights you're looking for, then there is the next level option, and this is a pretty neat way to get insights on the everyday work that's happening in Microsoft 365. And also getting a very dynamic view, I would say, of the collaboration patterns that you need to actually act on in terms of improving employee experience and also sharpen your customer focus. So this is Workplace Analytics. And in the slide I'm showing you right now, this is just the architectural view. Since you're data people or Azure people, I thought it would be a much more interesting angle. Of course, I'm much more of a visual person in my head, but also a solution architect. So I like both angles. I'll show you both angles, but starting out with the architecture. So what is really Workplace Analytics? Well, you can bring in, of course, Workplace Analytics has all of the data from Microsoft 365 default in it. But the interesting part is that you can also bring in additional data. So you can bring in metadata from Microsoft 365, of course. In addition, you can bring in, for instance, organizational data in terms of HR, department information, and so on. You can also bring in the customer dimension, so CRM data, into Workplace Analytics as a data source. And it's also quite easy to connect to, so it doesn't require that much of a development work in terms of starting to use it. By default, you get, of course, a set of, let's say, insights that you can start use. And in addition to that, partners are, of course, creating accelerators on top of that. So there are many different ways to leverage Workplace Analytics. And as you can see, the data outputs basically from all of this data coming in is explorational dashboards. And you can also actually go down to row level to find data. And on the experience side, or the consumption layer, there, of course, you have these amazing readouts that are created from the UI of Workplace Analytics. And of course, you have Power BI there as well. It's everywhere, right? So it provides you a lot of insights into adoption and patterns in terms of how your Office 365 environment and Teams coming is used. So here you can see an example. It's really small, but you get some interesting metrics, and you also get some contextual information there, more of an AI engine below there. So for instance, you can ask or get answers to questions like, where are the influencers in my company? So what kind of champions are there out there in terms of using Teams or in terms of adopting different Office 365 apps, including Power BI, for instance? And then who makes the decisions in your company? Are they made top-down or in a more decentralized manner? And how are influencers adapting to, for instance, the remote work situation? That's very interesting. How are these influencers' collaboration patterns changing response in terms of the disruption? And of course, what impact does this disruption have on the key roles that these influencers play across your organization? So it can provide you some powerful insights in terms of different patterns you could target in your organization. So that is Workplace Analytics. There are plenty of more information if you want to dig a little bit further down into that one. And then the next part here is the other accelerator, which is Microsoft Call Quality. So in Microsoft Teams, if you're an admin, you have kind of a standard dashboard in order to have a look at these data on the Microsoft Teams quality, calls quality. So the only thing to mention is that these insights are quite limited at the moment. But there is an answer to it. So on Microsoft Docs, there is actually, if you go into or search for CQD, call quality dashboard, then you get a set of templates that you can use to get some more insights into the quality of your Teams calls. And in these reports, of course, there is an underlying cube. So it's a direct query towards a cube that is already created. So in this case, if you're going down this direction, there isn't any need or there isn't any possibility to do any data modeling as such, because you don't really own the cube. But maybe, I don't know this, but I'm just speculating, maybe it's possible to use the direct query in connecting to the cube when composite model comes in Power BI. Maybe you can bring in some import data in addition. That's just me speculating a little bit. But how does this work? So you see in my slide here that there is a couple of things you need to do in order for this to work. So alongside so you can actually download an entire folder which has all of the assets you need basically to spin this up. And one of the things you need to do is to grab the extension. It's actually a certified connector. You need to grab that from the folder that you can download from the CQD templates, and then just put it in where all of your other connectors are. So typically it's in the certified extensions applications folder in the Power BI desktop application folder somewhere. So you just need to scoop that one over, and then you can just actually open up these Power BI templates, and then it will work quite seamlessly. So let's jump over to this demo then. Then I will start from here. So what we're looking at now is a folder where I have all of these assets. So we have, oh, sorry. Moving on a little bit too quickly here again. So we have a set of different templates, as you can see in this folder here. So we have a help desk report, we have a mobile device report, we have a summary report, we have a Teams usage report, and we have even user feedback report as the ratings on calls. So all of these reports is something you can just download and then reuse as long as you have the rights to do so, of course. So let's just jump over into the actual report here. I'll go a little bit faster. So opening up the summary report. Oh, for some reason, I'm just scooping away. So opening up this summary report, I'll just scoop over to where we have the data that's interesting to look at. So this is a pre-made template that you can spin up. The only thing you need to add in there is your tenant ID. And then you will, of course, get these stats connecting directly to that cube. So giving you fresh insights in terms of the call quality. And here you can, of course, see that there are lots of different data. You have, well, yeah, peer-to-peer conference. So this is like really nitty-gritty Teams data. I'm not that into the whole Teams infrastructure part of things. But I'm sure there is like plenty of interesting insights you can gain from these reports. And the good thing is that you have the cube there. So in Power BI Desktop, you can drag in, of course, different types of fields, and then you can actually create your own report, right? Giving you the insights that you're looking for in terms of the quality of the calls. So you can see there, for instance, the audio minutes and the last 30 days, and you can filter on region. And some of these things you can also actually bring in, I believe, within the Teams dashboard or the Teams quality dashboard admin site. There you can, for instance, also categorize different departments and areas within your organization. So there are some options to get some additional layer of insight. You can see on the right-hand side that there is like pre-created measures, calculations, and then there is a whole bunch of different dimensions and facts and whatnot in this cube and hierarchies. So you can, of course, create a new page, and then you can try to find out what insights you're looking for. So this is quite a neat option in terms of, for instance, looking at 4% stats. I can bring that in and create my own report. Of course, this is based on my demo tenant, so you don't really see that much interesting insights. But if you're on a real tenant, I'm sure there will be plenty of insights. And then moving on, since there are 10 minutes left, moving on to the last option. This is the little bit more complicated option. And this would, of course, require you to use or create a data platform within Azure to ingest this data into some storage mechanism, right? So we have the option to, for instance, use Data Factory to ingest Graph API data and then combining it with audit log data. Or we can use log analytics and then stream that data into a streaming service, for instance. So this option is highly flexible, a little bit more expensive because you, of course, need to create, ingest the data, store it somewhere, and then create, of course, the reporting layer on top. But I see many going down this route because there are definitely many dimensions in terms of what an organization would like to look at and gain insights from. So I do see a lot of companies going down this direction. But now at least you know the different options that are out there, both in terms of using Power BI within Teams and measuring Teams and gaining some insights into how Teams is being used these days. So that's it from my presentation today. So thank you very much for everyone listening, and please feel free to reach out on Twitter or LinkedIn or wherever you would like if you're interested in finding out more about this. All right, so then I'll just end my presentation here. And perhaps there are some questions.
Cool.
Are you still with me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
There we are. Thanks. Great session. Really nice. For me, a lot of new stuff.
It is a lot of new stuff.
Yeah, really cool to see how everything gets more and more integrated. So that's really nice. Is this something you already use in your daily work?
Yeah, so the Power BI integration is definitely something I use in my daily work.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, and from the new things you showed, which is the one we need to start Yeah, right now. What's the one we need to pick first?
Yeah, so definitely I would encourage everyone to start using that Power BI application from within Teams, because as long as it's allowed, of course, by your administrators in your companies, then that is a really, really quick way of starting to use more data into all of your channels, basically. So that's a really, really easy one to start with.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, nice.
Absolutely.
Thanks. Well, I think we're out of questions. Roland, is that correct?
Well, maybe the question is, are there any specific security roles we need to get from our security administrators to use any of it? Or is it just a toggle they can switch on in their management environment?
Yeah, so there is a toggle, but in addition, there are a set of policies that the administrator can turn on and off as they wish. So there are different options to kind of do the governance part around how which options are available, basically, on the tenant in terms of using Power BI.
Okay. Well, we need to bug our administrators for that then.
Yes.
Correct specific rights.
Yeah, it could be that many has kind of not turned it on yet. It's quite new, so yeah, let's see.
Yeah, we're just going to ask them for it, and then we'll see where we'll go.
Absolutely, yeah. And you actually, in addition to Power BI now, you have both Power Apps and you have the virtual agents and Power Automate as well from within Teams. So this kind of bringing everything. Like Teams is the new hub for everything, right? Even if it's creating apps or automations or creating virtual agents. That's kind of where the new home is.
Yeah, Teams for everything.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Well, thanks again. Are you willing to share the slides with us?
Absolutely, I can do that.
Nice, thanks. Well, then thank you very much.
Thank you.
And also, again, thanks, Rowan, for your great session. I think we had two very, very nice sessions this evening. Really enjoyed it. Also, big thanks to our sponsors somewhere down here. And of course, thank you for watching. Like Roland said already during the kickoff, next month we don't host an Azure Thursday because it's on the same day as the virtual Azure Community Day, and Azure Thursday will co-organize that event. So it's a really cool event. Please join that one. And we are back in January.
Yes, in the new year.
Yeah, already looking forward to it.
Very much. So I hope to see you on the virtual Azure Community Day. And have a good evening.
And have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.